So hi guys, in this video we are going to build a multi-step form using Nextjs 14 and Zustand for global state management and Zord for validation. So this is what we are going to build. This is a job application which has 4 steps. First is to collect the personal information, and next we will collect the experience, and after that we will collect the education background, and we will just show all the data for review, and when the user submits we will just console log it down. Let's see how it works. So if I just click on next, we can see that error validation is working. So let me just fill in some data here. Now if I click on next, so it says invalid email address okay.com. We can see that we are in our experience information now. So if we say that yes, I am a fresher, you don't have to add any experience here. We can just move on to the next stage. We can also see that we have a little animation in our progress bar. So if you are not a fresher, you can just click on add more experience and you can just fill this. If you want, we can add more experience or we can just remove one. So click on next. In education background, let me just fill in something. So if they need to add more education, they can just click on this and they can just fill it. If they don't want to add, they want to remove this item, they can just click on remove education. And if we click on next, it just shows our details here, like we have added our personal info, experience and educational information. We can just go through this, and if you want, you can just go to the previous steps and edit them. When they submit, it will be logged to the console and the form will be resetted. So let me just go into the console now. Yeah, you can see that it has submitted data and it has the educational information, experience info, and also the personal info. So if the fresher is true, this experiences array will be empty. So we have written the validation like that. If the fresher is false, it will make sure that the user enters a single experience or more. So the design is built also for mobile friendly. So we can just see that here. So let's start building this. So I have created an Nextjs app with the following options. And now let's install our dependencies. So npm install Zord for our validation and Justin for our global state management. Now, while it's installing, let's do some bit of a change here. So in global.css, let's remove everything except the 3 lines. And in layout.tsx, let's add a background here. bg blue of 400. And in page.tsx, let's remove everything here. And right now let's just have a div of hello world. We can see that we have dependencies installed. We need to create 2 files in the parent directory. So the first file will be validation schema.ts, which we will do to create our schemas. And one more thing is store.ts, where we will actually have the state management, and we will also create a components directory. So in components, we will have a progress bar and different section of the multi-step form. Yeah, I think we have our files and everything ready. Let's build our validation schema now. So let me just close everything and open validation schema.ts. And here, let's just import z from Zord. So we will have 4 schemas here. One is for the personal info, experience info, education background, and the form data, which consists of these 3 things. So let's create our personal info schema now. Export const personal info schema will be equal to z.object. First name will be like z.string, which will have a min of 3. So it will have a minimum of 3 letters. And we can say that our error message as first name is required. Yeah. So let me just copy this again, and here we just need to change it to last name, and we'll keep a min of 1. Last name is required. And next we will have our phone. So here I will just consider the phone number will be like a 10-digit number. So z.string dot length will be 10, Otherwise, we'll just say the error as phone number must contain or must be 10 digits. Now, one thing is that phone number will be a type of number, right? But we are getting it as a string, so we need to do some checking there so that the user doesn't enter any values other than the numerical values. So regex. So here, let me just put it down. So here we need to write it like slash cap symbol slash d plus dollar symbol. This will make sure we are having only the digit. I just got this regular expression from Stack Overflow online, and we can say our error message as phone number must contain only digits. Alright, now we have our phone number. Let's add one more thing, that is our email. So email will be a set of string. So I already have a format for email, and we can just call it, and we can just say the error message here, invalid email address. Yeah. Now we have a personal info schema. Let's add the schema for our experience info. So export const experience info schema will be equal to zod.object. Here we will have just two things. One is the fresher, which will be of type boolean, z.boolean. The another thing is experiences, which will be an array. So z.array, and this array will consist of an object. So z.object. So for our object, we will have three things, right? So number of years, the company name, and the description of their work or anything like that. So number of years will be z.string dot min 1, and we could just say number of years is required. After this min, we'll just also call one other thing, refine, which takes in the value. So is nan. So this will make sure that we have our number value, since we are getting the number of year also as string. So we will just typecast this into a number, and we will just check if it is a number. And one more thing is that, and we will also see that it is greater than 0. So if it is not, we will just give a message like this will be our error message for this. So the condition here is that it should be a number and it should be above 1. So they can't just enter experience of number of years as 0, right? Please enter a number greater than 0 for number of years. So we are calling the refine function. We are just taking the value that the user has entered. We are checking if the user has entered a number or not. If it is a number, we will also check that if it is a positive number. If it is not satisfying this both condition, we'll just return an error message telling them to enter a number greater than 0. So we have a number of years now. After number of years, we have a company name, which can be of string min of 1. Company name is required. You can we can also have like 3 here. So it's just the length of the company name. You can just define how many length you want. And after our company name, I'm just going to copy the same thing and change this to description. And here description. And since we have our condition like if they are not a fresher, they can fill this. If they are fresher, they don't have to fill this, right? So we should mention that it is optional. So if we see here, our condition is not written perfectly here. So even if they are not a fresher, they don't have to enter this by this logic. So we need to refine this data to make sure that if the fresher is false, we have to make sure that the user enters some kind of data in our experience. So in the end of this is.object, we will write refine and we will take the data. Here we will just return data.fresher. We will see if it is true, and if it is not true, we will check the another thing, that data.experience and data.experience.length is greater than 0. This will make sure that we are entering some kind of data. If the fresher is false, now we just have to build the next thing, that education background. Export const education background schema, which will be a z.zod, sorry, z.object, and it will have an educations. So this will be as same as the experience. We will have an array of objects. So z.array. So here is a dot object. So this object will also have three things: the course name, the school name, and the year of completion. So course name will be z.string, and we will have our min like 3. So course name is required. Yeah, I'm just gonna copy the same thing and write as school name. School name. Yeah, make sure the C is also small here. You can have any spelling or name you want, but you just have to make sure you're following a consistent thing along the application. School name is required. After this, year of completion z.string dot min of 4. So we need to have a 4 digit here, like 2024. 2024 is 4 digit, right? So year of completion, we'll just make sure that they understand with 4y is required. Now we just have to make sure that they are entering only the digits. So for that, we are going to use regex with the same thing here. So I'm just copying the same thing we used in the phone number. Year of completion must contain only digits. And to make sure that they are entering at least one education information in the end of this education's array, I'm just going to give a min of 1. At least one education is required or must be filled. You can just write anything we want. Now that we have our schemas, let's group them into one single schema, that export const form data schema will be equal to z.object, and we have our personal info as personal info schema, experience info as experience info schema. Yeah, education background, to that education background schema. Yeah, so this is of entire form data schemas, and let's just export some types here so that we can use it in our store. We can just get the types from Zod. I'm just gonna type export type personal info with capital P will be equal to z.inform type of personal info schema. So make sure the info spelling is correct. So like this, we just have to do it for the other three things. Experience info, experience info schema, education background, and our form data. Yeah, now that we have types, we need to add two more things. So we need a type for a single education, and we also need type for this single experience. Yeah, let's just type it out here. So export type of education, which will be of an object with course name. Now let's take it as an all educations. So let's just add s here. So this is going to be an array of things. So course name will be of type of string, and one thing is school name. Yeah, I think C is small here. I don't know why I keep doing this. School name and year of completion. So we just need to add our array here. So the same thing will go for our experiences. So we will have number of years, company name and descriptions. I don't know why I used n as capital here. So small n, small c. So let's make sure we are keeping it like that. So small c and small n. Yeah, I think we are done with our schemas now. We have personal info schema, experience, and our education background, and wrapped it with form data. And we have our types we need. So now that we have done with our schemas, let's go to our store. So let's build our store.ts in which we will handle our data and stuff. So we will have the functions like to get the data, to update the data here, and from the UI we'll just call this function to do the necessary things we need. Here let's import create from Zustand. So import create from Zustand, and we'll just import our types from validation schema. So we will have our personal info. So it's just imported there. Okay. After personal info, experience info, education background, and our form data. So here we will create our store const use job app store. So you can use any name you want here. Just make sure you are starting it with a small letter and create. It will take a set and get with which we can do some things. So within this we will be adding some parameters and functions which we can access globally in our app. So let's create an interface for our store first. So interface job app state. So we will have a step. Step is the number in which the form is allocated. Like let me just go there. So if you see this is the step. So the personal information is step one, experience is step two, like that. So first we'll be starting with step, and after the step we will have our form data, which will be the data in our app. It will be of type form data that we are imported from validation schema. And next we will have to move on to the next step, right? So we will create a function for that too. So next step. So it will be a function which returns nothing, void. Same for previous step. Yeah. So with these functions, we will be able to go to the next step and also to the previous step. And let's have one more functions which tells the total number of steps we have, so that while creating the progress bar, we can just call this function to find out the number of circles we have instead of hard coding it. Okay. Get total steps, which will also take, so which will return a number. Now we have to write functions to set our data. So whenever we need to set some data, we just need to call these functions that we are going to create, and it will store the data inside the form data here. So for that, let's just create set personal info. Since we have the form separately in multiple steps, right? So we need to write the set functions for each of those steps. So we can just validate the single steps and make sure that step is added to the form data. Set personal info, which will take in the data, which will be a partial of type personal info, which returns a void, right? So partial meaning is that we won't have the exact data, we will have a partial data. Like sometimes they will just submit without filling our email, right? So I'm just gonna copy it two more times. Set education background, yeah, and set experience info, yeah. So change the type here as well, education background experience info. So the last thing we are going to do is that submit form. So what to do when the user have submitted the form actually. So this will be in the last step, like after our review. So I have added an extra review state here. You don't have to do that, but I just added something so that we have our entire data to see, which is just optional. You can have any number of steps you want here. I'm just gonna add this here. After this create, so job app state. So we have data here. So it will show an error here since we haven't filled all this data yet. That's why it's showing an error. So we don't have to worry about it. Let's just fill this. Our step will be 1. So we'll be starting at step 1, right? So step 1. So we're just giving the initial data here. So let's have our form data. So we need to create a basic data with empty strings here. So we need personal info, which will have first name of empty string, and I'm just gonna copy this 4 times. After first name we have our last name, our phone, and our email. Yeah, after personal info we have experience info, which will defaultly have a fresher of false and experiences of an empty array. After experience info we have education background, so which will have educations. So we can't have this empty, so we just need to write in one object here, course name of empty string. I'll copy it 2 times. After course name, school name, and our year of completion. So we don't have to worry about the errors, it will go in a minute after we set all our functions. So I'll just close this form data here. Now let's type our next step function. Next step, which will be an arrow function. Set, it will take the current state, and we just need to make sure that the step is incremented here. So step is state.step, so it will take the current step and increment it with 1. And I'm just going to copy the same thing for a previous step and minus of 1. Now let's write in our get total steps here. Get total steps. So we just need to return the number of steps we have. So we can make sure that the number of steps as, so this is step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. So we just need to make sure the number of objects we have in our JSON here. Object dot keys get. So this will return our form data here, and it will see the number of keys it has. This will return the number of objects we have in our JSON data hub over there. So it will be three, right? And I have also added one more thing like a review, which shows all the data. So for that, we need to add one. Yeah, I have added this one for our review submit there, which shows all the three datas in there. So you don't have to write this function if you don't want. You can just out code it in the progress bar while we are coding there. Yeah. So but make sure if you are not using this, you are not adding it in the job state also. So in order to remove these errors, let me just add in some starting data here like set personal info, which will take the data, which will take the data, and set education background, which will also take the data. And finally, we will have a submit form. Yeah, once we have everything here, we can see that we don't have any error. So inside of set personal state, actually we don't need this curly bracket here. I just use it for initial data. So set state state. So we have got the state here. So we will just change the form data now. So form data will be everything from the state of form data already. So we will change the one thing is that our personal info. So in that personal info, let's keep everything from our state.formData.personalInfo, and we will just change in our data that we got here. So if they have just got a single field from personal info, we can just update that alone. Yeah, and if they are getting an entire data, it will just update it also. So let me just copy this set. So instead of this curly braces, so here instead of personal info, we just have to change it to experience info, form data dot experience info. Yeah. So the same thing for our education background, education background. So make sure you're changing here too. Yeah. So we have set personal info and everything ready. So if you have anything like a database, you can just write that side here. After everything, what we have to do is just call this function. It will make sure that we are storing the data in our database or in our console log. So whatever you are writing inside this will happen after they submit the form fully. So we need to get our state here. So set state. So the reason we are calling set here is that we need to change our form data too. So after the user has submitted, we need to clear our form data. We need to send the user back to the step one. So if they want, they just fill it again. Okay, set. So here, let's just console log it. Form submitted successfully. And we also need to console log the submitted data. So submitted data will be our state dot form data. So we need to return things here. So return will have a step as one. So it will return to the step one, and we need to make sure that we have our form data clean here. So we'll just remove all the things that the user have entered, and we just need to copy this. So we will have an empty clean data again and paste it here. So after the user has submitted, we will move to the step one, and we will have cleared our form. I think we have our things ready. So we need to export this too. So export default use job app store. Okay. So we are done with our store. So we have our global state now. We have added the validation. So now before going into the UI directly, let's just create the files it's required. So in components folder, we'll just need to create a personal info.tsx. So here we will have R of CE. Yeah, we don't need this function. Alright, same like this. We will have one more file for ExperienceInfo.tsx R of CE and EducationBackground.tsx R of CE, and we will have ReviewSubmit here of CE. So we will also create one more file here which says our progress bar. So progress bar is nothing but that steps we are seeing in the UI 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me just go to the UI. Yeah, this is the progress bar. So let me just add out of CE here too. In our page.tsx inside our app directory, let me just close all the other files. So here let me just add the class name of flex, justify center, and py of 10, and instead of hello world we'll have another div with class name bg of gray 100, rounded large, width full, p of 10, and mx of 5. Within this div we'll create another div for our title job application, and we'll have a class name for this pt of 2, mb of 5, text center, text of 2 excel, and after small screens we'll have the text as 3 excel. Font should be semi bold. So after our title we will have a progress bar. And after our progress bar we just need to render our steps here. So for that we will use a switch case. So before returning it we'll just get the step like the current step we are in here. So const step will be equal to use job app store. We have a step from our store. So render step will be equal to, we'll have a switch statement for that step. So if we have case 1, we'll just return the personal info component that we have created. If it is case 2, we'll return experience info, and for case 3 we'll just return education background, and for case 4 we need to return our review submit, and we'll have a default here returning null. Yeah, so we just need to render this after our progress bar. So we'll have a div and we'll just have our render step here function. Alright, now we have an overall layout of our function. So let's just run this npm run dev. So we can see that we have an error here that it only works in client component. So let's just add this here, use client. Now we won't be getting any error. Yeah, we can see that. So since the starting is that step 1, it shows the personal info here. So let's add one more thing, that the next and the previous buttons here, so we can make sure that everything works properly. So inside our personal info, yeah, we will have our forms and validation and everything here. And now let's just create the buttons. Let me just add a comment here, buttons. Alright, so inside this div I'm just gonna create a button of next, and let's have an arrow that we can see here. If we go, let's add this arrow there. For that, we just need to type curly braces, quotes, and slash U2192. Yeah, this will make sure that we are getting our arrow here. Now if we go to our UI, we can see a button here. If I click on this, nothing works since I haven't called the function yet. Yeah, before that, let's just add in some design here. So flex, justify end, empty of 5. And in our button, let's add a class name of text white, bg of blue 500, px of 3, pi of 1, rounded lg, text should be large, and after small screens, the text should be excel. Now we just need to write on click here. So on click, we just need to call in our next step here. Inside our function, let's just call this so const next step. It will be from use job app store. We can see that we don't have any error now. So let's go to the UI. We can see we have our next here. If I click on this, it goes to Experience Info. Let's add that same button inside of Experience Info too. So I'm just gonna copy these buttons here. So inside Experience Info, I'm just gonna paste it here. Alright, now we just need to call in our next step here. Next step. So const next step and previous step also. So we need to go back to our personal info, right? For that, we'll just call use job app store. So make sure you're adding a parenthesis here, right? So before our next, let's just copy the same button and paste it here as well for our previous step. Previous, and let's just move this to this side. So we will have an arrow mark to our left. And for that, we just need to change this 2 to 0. So it will have an arrow pointing towards left. So here, previous step. But we need to have some UI change for our next and previous, right? We don't have to have the same button colors there. So for that, I'm just gonna change this to text bg of blue, and we don't need to write px of 3 and y, and we don't need the rounded as well since we don't have a background color here. It will be just the white or the background. So instead of justify end, we'll have the previous on the left side and our next on the right side. So for that, we'll have justify between. Alright, so this is going to be same for our next function as well. Sorry, for our next step as well. Education background. I'm just gonna copy this same here. Make sure you're importing this. Alright, let's add this in our review submit as well. So in our review submit, instead of next step, we will just call in our submit form. Yeah, and then we'll have our buttons as well. Instead of next step, submit form, and let's just have submit here. Alright, so we have added our buttons as you can see here to all the functions, and we have imported this next step and previous step from our job store. Yeah, let's see it in the UI now. Alright, we have our personal info. If I click on next, we have our experience info now. If I go to next, we can see our education background. And if I go to next, we can see we are in our review submit. Now, if I click on submit, it goes to our personal info again. And if I go to our console by pressing F12, we can see that form has been submitted successfully. And we can see the submitted data here. So next, we will just write the progress bar that we are seeing here before we write in our validation and stuff, since it will be easy for us to go through back and forth. Now if we write our progress bar, it will be easier for us to do the UI here. Alright, so for our progress bar, you just need to go to our progressbar.tsx, and let me just close all of the files. We just do this step. And let me also close this terminal. So inside our progress bar, we just need to get the step and the total step as well. So step get total steps from our use job store. So we'll create a variable called total step, which will be from get total steps. So we have our current step and also the total number of steps. So the first thing let's do is that create these circles. So we'll have a separate component for that. So we'll just create it inside this file as if since we are not going to use it anywhere else. So here const. So above this function progress bar, const circle with capital C, which is going to get two things, step and the current index. So we will be looping through, right? So we need our current index. So we will use that current index to do different styling like we can see here. So the current index has blue thing here. And if we go to the next step, this entire thing will change it to blue with one the text as white. So for that we will use the current index as well. So you will see it in a minute. So we just need to write a type for this. Step will be a type of number and current index will be a type of number as well. And here let's write a return of div and our text will be just our current index. So the main thing we need to add here is our class name. So class name will be, so make sure you are giving it as a curly braces and backticks since we are going to have some conditions here. Yeah, so let's have our width as 7 and height as 7. And let me just show you how it will look first. So normally the circle will be like this and the current index will be like this. And if we have like some kind of data here, let me just fill in some data. Yeah, if I click on next, you can see that it changes this color to full blue, that that step has been completed. So if I click on F12, so we can see that the size of the circle has been reduced for our mobile screens as well. And so if we have the data submitted, we will have the entire blue. If not, we will have it like this for our current step. All right, let's do that. Width of 7 in small screens, the width should be 10. So after small screen sizes, the width and the height will be of 10 and the circle will be flex item center and justify center so that our text will be in center of the circle, rounded of full, border of 2. After small screens, the border should be 4. Select none. And we just need to write in a little bit of transition for our colors, which will have a duration of 300. Is in out. And we need to delay this by 300 as well. Yeah, so after this, dollar curly braces. So we need to check our conditions now. If the step is equal to our current index, so for that our styling will be text of blue of 500 and our border will be blue of 500. If it is not that case, we will check it again for another condition. So make sure you are wrapping this inside another backticks here. Yeah. So we need to check if the step is below our current index. So we can just fill it with all blue here, right? So if the step is less than our current index, we will have the BG of white and border of gray 300, text of gray 500. Yeah, so if it is not, we'll have the BG of blue of 500 and the border blue of 500 as well. and the text should be white. So we have a circle ready with our conditions and everything. For this div, let's have a class name here as well. So we have a list of circles, right? So we need to make sure that they are going it from left to right. So flex, mx of auto, justify between, mb of 6, which should be 3 by 4, and max, which should be 2xl. Yeah, so inside this, we'll write our loop. So curly braces, and then list of 3 dots and array. So array of total steps minus 1, and we will just map through it. Dot map and an underscore. Since we don't have any data for that particularly, we won't be using this. We will be using this idx, and it will just return something here. Otherwise, it will just show an error. I'm just gonna have a div here, so we can see an error here left hand side of an automatic. All right, let's just write number here. Number type number is not assignable to type number. So I think I have used capital N there, which is a wrapper object. So inside our store.tss, sorry, inside our store.ts. So if we go here, instead of capital N, we need to use small n here, which says that it is a number. Yeah, I think that's the problem here. Now we don't have a problem. In this div, I'm just gonna give the key as idx, class name of flex, item center, width of full. Yeah, we need to call in our circles here. Circle with the step of the step we have called, and the current index should be our idx, and we want a step, right? So instead of 0, we need it as 1. So plus 1. I think we have a progress bar ready. We haven't finished it yet since so we don't have that line yet. We'll just see it in the UI for now how it looks. Alright, so I haven't called it in the page.tsx. So inside page.tsx, I'm just gonna call progress bar. Yeah, now it will appear in the UI. Yeah, we can see that we have a 1, 2, and 3. So we only have 3 here since I have called it like -1 here in the progress bar. So why I did this because we need to create this line, right? So this line also we will be creating, right? So I'm just gonna add this line inside this loop itself. So if we are using that fourth circle inside that loop, we will also have a line here, which we don't want it. So for our fourth circle, we just write that one more circle after this array, yeah, which will be our last circle. So that when we have that line, the last circle won't have one. Yeah, for that div, and I'm just gonna call in that circle with the step of step and current index of total step, which will be 4, right? So yeah, so inside this div, let's have a class name of flex, item center, and which should be fit. So if we go to the UI now, we can see that we have 4 circles. If I click on next, we can see that a circle has been completed. And if we click on next, we can see that now we'll just need to do that line here that we can see after the circle. I'm just gonna write connecting lines, right? So div of class name of flex grow, so the line should grow to the width between the two circles, and the height of that line should be of 2 pixels. So make sure you are putting it inside a square bracket. So if we are using square bracket, we can have any number of pixel size we want, and in small screens the height should be of 1. Relative, yeah, here we will actually have 2 lines. One is this gray line and the next is this blue line. So the blue line will be overwritten by this gray line if we have completed that particular step. So div So we don't need it like this. Let's have a self-closing div with a class name of absolute, top of 0, left of 0, height should be full, width should be full, and the BG should be of grade 300. So we can see that we have lines here now. So we just need to write in our blue line with our transition. I'm just going to create another self-closing div with a class name. So here we need to use backticks. So curly braces, backticks, absolute. Yeah, I'm just going to copy this again. So everything will be same here. Instead of gray of 300, we will have the background as blue of 500. Yeah, after that we will write in our transition. So transition transform duration of 300 is in and out. So origin should be from the left, and we need to write in our transform here. Transform and dollar curly braces. Step should be greater than the IDX plus 1. If that is the case, we'll have the line scale of x of 100, so it will be blue line entirely. If it is not, the scale will be 0, so the blue line won't be there. So it will be seem like it is a gray line. So if we go to the UI now, we can see that we have our lines now. If we go to the previous line, we can see it goes back and it has the empty gray line here. If I click on next. So we have our progress bar ready. Alright, so we can just close this. So now the only thing we have left with is our actual forms. Let's start with our personal info. Let me just close in our files. So along with our next step, let's also get few things, form data and also our set personal info. So with this we can update our personal info, and we will also have a use state for our error here. Const error set error use state, which is of type string, and let's leave it empty for now. So make sure you are importing the use state. Yeah, now let's add a bit of UI. So instead of personal info, I'm just going to create a h2 tag saying personal information and with a class name of text of Excel and font semi bold. And let's create another div with a class name of margin top 5. So mt5. Here we will have our error and our form. So first let's write our error. So error. So if there is an error, we will have a div here which just shows that error with an asterisk. So this asterisk is just for the UI. It's not like a syntax or anything. So class name will be font of bold and text of red 600. Yeah, that's it for our error. Now let's create a form. So div. So let's add a class name here, which is going to be a grid, gap of 6, and margin bottom of 6. And in MD screens, the grid calls will be 2. So below the MD screens, we will have a column of 1. So after the MD screen, it will be 2 columns, like side by side. Now first, let's add our first name. So if I go to store.ts, and inside here we can see the personal info as first name, last name, phone and email. So let's create our first name now. So let's have an empty div, and inside that let's create a label with first name. So its class name is going to be like text large, font of medium, and text gray of 900. And let's also add HTML4 which is going to be first name. So make sure you are using the same name as you have in the store file. So after our label, let's create the import, and type will be of text. So name will be first name, and let's have a placeholder of first name, and let's make sure it's required. So the value for this will be from a form data, right? So form data dot PersonalInfo dot first name. So we need to write our onChange function here, but before that, let's add in a class name for this too. So in our class name, we can go with bg of gray of 50, border gray of 300, and text gray of 900, text small and rounded LG, block width of full, and P should be of 2.5. Yeah, so the only thing we need to add here is our onChange here. So onChange is going to be handle change, which we will create now. So I'm just gonna copy this handle change. So after our error, const handle change is equal to an arrow function. So this takes in an event of E, which will be of type react.change event, which takes in HTML input element. Yeah. Before changing anything, let's set our error to null. So if we have an error already when the user submit, so as soon as they make a change, the error should be gone, right? So set error as an empty string, and we just need to update it. So set personal info, which takes in a name. So e.target dot name. So this name will be like our first name, last name, like that. So the keys will be the name here, like we are specifying here, right? So that name, and we just call in our respective value. So e.target.value. So it will directly update our value here inside the form. So we are just calling the set personal info with the name and this value to it. So when we go to store.ts, we can see that we have our set personal info here. So it will take in our data and it will update it and keep the others data as the same. So same goes for our experience and educational background. So we don't have to worry about those things. We just need to call this function. Now it will work. Now that we have our first input, let's see it in the UI. So we can see that we have our first name. So I'm just gonna copy this div again and paste it again. This is going to be, I'm just gonna use Control D here. So select the similar terms and change it all together. Last name, and here also last name. So we don't have to change the handle change, it works the same. Yeah, I'm just gonna paste it again for our phone. So this is going to be phone. I didn't change the last name here. Yeah, okay. Placeholder. So I'm just gonna write phone number, and in the placeholder it's just gonna be like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. So we have 10 digits here. Alright, that's it for our phone too. Now let's write our email. Control D, email address. So we can have a placeholder like mike at company or example.com. So this can be of type email. We don't have to change anything else here. Alright, I think we are done with our form UI now. Yeah, now if I click on next, it goes to the next page, but we have to make sure that the user fills this form to go to the next page. So we need to call our validation functions, and after that only we have to send it to the next page. Let's do that. So in VS Code, I'm just gonna go to the top. let's create a new function called validate and next. So const validate and next, which will be of arrow function. Here what we are going to do is we're going to call our personal info schema from validation schema. Make sure you're importing it, and we will just pass in our data here. So pass our form data dot personal info. Now we are giving our personal info to the schema, and we are checking if there is any error. In set error will be empty. So if we don't get any error, we will make the error as empty, and we will call in our next function. So next step. Alright, now we need to wrap this in a try catch. So I'm just gonna create a try catch now. Error, this error can be of type any, and make sure you're putting these 3 lines in the try. Alright, in the catch, we are going to set our error, which is going to be of error.errors of the first one dot message. Or if we don't have any error message but we are still having an error, we'll just have a default text like please fill all the fields correctly. Alright, I think that's it. So now the next step is inside our validate and next. So we just need to call this function when we are clicking the next button. So if I go down to the buttons, instead of next step, validate and next step. Okay, now in order to see that this single file is working, let's just console log it for now. So after going to the next step, I'm just gonna say console log form data dot personal info. Now if I click on next, we can see the first name is required. Let me just fill in something. Next, last name is required. It's working. And in phone number, if I press any digits here, it is going to say phone number must contain only digits. And if I have like only 4 digits or something like that, it says phone number must be 10 digits. So I'm just gonna type in a 10 digits here, and let's have abc at abc.com. So click on next. Now you can see it goes to the next page. If we go to the console, we can see an object here. We can see our data has been added to our form data. I'm just gonna remove this console log from here. Okay, now let's do our experience info. And inside of experience info, so I'm just gonna copy the same heading here like h2. So most of the things is going to be same since the UI will look similar, right? So instead of personal information, experience information. So now I'm just gonna copy other things too. So I'm just gonna copy from here till just our first name. So we'll just copy it from again from there itself. I don't know why I pasted the h2 here. H2 should be up here, and we don't have to write this. And after this h2, we'll just paste this, and we need to write in another closing div to close our main div. Alright, we have a few errors here, like since we haven't called the form data on the on change here, and we also need to set our error. So const error set error will be equal to use state, which will be of type string, with an empty string. Yeah. Now there is no error for this, has no corresponding closing tags. Okay, I think we need to write another closing tag here. So div. Alright, now we have our things ready. So here we will just get our form data and also our set experience info. Yeah. And inside our form, we need to change this to our form data's names here. So for our experience, I think we have a fresher field now. So this is going to be a little bit of different from our personal info, since we need to add few conditions here. Like if they are fresher, they no need the UI for the experience, right? So we need to write that too. So first let's just fill in our fresher now, fresher, and here or you fresher, and the type is going to be of checkbox, and the name will be fresher. So for we don't have a placeholder for this, and here we just need to see if the check, so check will be from our form data dot, okay, form data dot experience info dot fresher, which is a boolean value. And let's write our onChange function here itself, since we have only one type of boolean, right? So we don't have to write a function up, we can just use it here. So onChange will be equal to an arrow function, so const is fresher will be equal to not of form data dot experience info dot fresher. So we will store our opposite value, and we will also set our error to null or an empty string. And let's set our experiences now. Set experience info, and here we'll add our fresher will be of is fresher, and we will have our experiences as an empty array. Since if he is a fresher, he doesn't have any experience, right? So we don't have to have that. Yeah, we should not make this required. So let's add in a span here to make sure that user knows that what they are clicking it for. Right, span, yes, I am a fresher. So the class name for this will be margin top of 2, or let's keep it as margin y of 2. Okay, text of small, text gray of 700. Alright, let's wrap this input inside a div. So div, and this goes below the span. Alright, here we will have a class name, flex, item center, and margin top of 2. So we have only one field here, right, for a fresher, and we will have the other form below. So we don't need this div here. I'm just gonna remove this. Yeah. So directly after our error, we will have our are you fresher checkbox. I think since it is a checkbox, we don't need a class name for our text fields, right? So let's just remove all those things. So I'm just gonna change the class name for this input. So height will be of 4, width will be of 4. I should have just write this input from the first instead of copying it. Text of blue 600 and border of gray 300, gray 300. So it will be rounded. On focus, the ring will be of blue. Let's keep it as 500. Alright. So now we have a header. Inside the div, we have the error, and we have a fresher label. After this, we will have our buttons. So before that, we will add in our form as well. Now if we see the UI, you can see it works perfectly good now. So we'll just add in a little bit of padding here. So in here, instead of MY, let's keep it as ML. So it will add the margin left. Yeah, it looks good now. Now let's write in our other fields. So I'm just gonna close this div, and after this div, we'll make sure that form data dot experience dot fresher, experience dot fresher is not true. So let's add a exclamatory here. So if it is not true, then we'll have a div. So inside this div, we are going to map through our experience info, since we have our experiences like an array, right? So inside an array, we have objects, and inside that object, we have three fields: curly braces, form data dot experience info dot experiences dot map, which is going to take in our experience, and then index of idx, which is going to return a div. So since we are mapping through it, let's add a key of idx. and class name of grid, gap of 6, MB of 6, margin top of 2, MD, grid calls of 2, border gray of 300, round at large. So within this div, let's paste in our fields here. So I'm just gonna copy this from a personal info, and I'm just gonna copy that first name div alone, copy it, and let's paste it here. I'm just gonna comment on change now. Alright. Now in our label, the HTML for will be number of years with n as small. Okay. I'm just gonna copy this and paste it here. So instead of form data.personalinfo, we're just going to have that experience here that we are calling it in the map function. So experience.number of years, and the type will be of number. And also let's change it to number of years, and let's add a min value of 1, and in placeholder also let's keep it as number of years. Now in our onChange function, instead of handle change, so since we are looping through an array, we can't have the handle change function easy as what we did in our personal info. So we need to pass in our index as well to now loop through the array in our handle change. So for that we will take the event, and we will have the name as handle experience change. So this function will change the experience, which will take in the event and also the IDX, the index. So I'm just gonna copy this, and let's go to the top after our errors. Yeah, let's write in our handle experience change here, const handle experience change, which will be of an arrow function, which is going to take two things, which will be of react dot change event of type HTML input element, and then IDX. This index will be of number. First, let's get our name and value. The name comma value will be from e.target, and let's create a variable like updated experiences. So we will just update the experience in this, and we will set the value again, which will be an array of using the spread operator here, form data dot experience info dot experiences. We are getting an error here saying that it's not an array type. So since it has undefined, it is telling like that. So we can just say it won't be undefined with our exclamatory here. We won't have an error again. So in our updated experience, let's call in our index. So in that particular index, let's use the spread operator again and updated experience of that index. So all the other fields is going to be same, but our name will be changed with a new value. Yeah. So we have our handle experience change now. So let's see it in the UI. So I'm not seeing any field here. Yeah, since initially we have our experiences as null, right? So we are not seeing any field. So we'll just need to add a button to add in our experience. So before that, let's finish this experience thing. So after the number of years, we have two more fields, right? Let's just write them out now. Yeah, one more thing is that we have updated the experience, but we are not setting it. So set experience info, in which the experiences will be updated experiences. And now we have set in the data after our number of years div. So I'm just gonna paste the same field again. Here it will be like the company name, and it will be a type of text. So we won't have a min value here. And here instead of number of years, we will have name of the company name, and other things is going to be same, I think. So I'm just gonna again copy this company name to create our description. So paste this again and Control D, description. I don't see an error again. Description, and in placeholder, let's add like about your experience. So inside this main div, so let me just close this. So after this curly braces, let's create a button here. Button which says add more experience. And the class name is going to be same as our next step. So I'm just gonna copy this and paste this here. So here we will have an on click of add experience, which will add our experience for us. So it will be an error now. Let's create a function for it here. So const add experience will be an arrow function. So we will do the same thing we did here. So we will create an updated experience. We'll add in our empty experience with it and we will set it again. Const new experience will be equal to number of years with an empty string, and company name with an empty string. So make sure you're using small letter here in number of years. Description will be of empty string as well. Alright, let's get in our updated experiences here. So const updated experiences will be equal to spread operator form data dot ExperienceInfo dot experiences with an exclamatory mark, comma, we will add in our new experience here. Now let's set it into our experience. So set experience info. Here the experience will be our updated experience. So now let's see it in the UI. Yeah, now we can see we have our add more experience here. So if I click on this, we can see it is creating an experience. And if I click on this again, it is creating another experience. Now if they want to enter only one experience, we have to remove this, right? So we will add a button here. Now for our button, I'm just going to use the same button we are using here. So let's create a div which has a class name of flex, justify center, and items end, and paste in our button here with remove experience. And here we will have an arrow function which has remove experience, which takes in the index. Now let's create this function. So after our add experience, let's add the remove experience, which will take in our IDX, which will be of type number. Let's set our error as null. If we have any, we'll just remove that error. And const current experiences will be equal to spread operator form data dot ExperienceInfo dot experiences, and we will have a new experience which will be a list of experience after removing our index, which will be of type of experiences from our validation schema, and an empty array. So we have to filter through our current experiences. So current experience dot filter. So we have our experience as E, and if E dot company name is not equal to current experience of that index, so we will get the object which we want to delete. So if the E dot company name and that company name is equal, so it's not equal, we'll just push it to the new experience, otherwise we'll just leave it like that. So new experience dot push E. So everything other than our particular experience will be pushed to new experience, and we just need to set this here. So set experience info will be experiences, new experiences. Now if I go to the UI, I'm just gonna type something here. Yeah. And if I don't want this, I'm just gonna click on remove experience, which will remove that experience. So one thing is that if I click on add more, and if I have the same company name twice, it will remove both of them together. Like if I click this, since both are empty, it will be considered as the same thing, right? So it will be removing the both of the IDs here, like this. Now if I click on yes, I'm a fresher, we can see that our experience has been gone, and if I click on no, we can see that it has been completely deleted. Now let's write our validate the next function. So after remove experience, const validate, and the next will be an arrow function. We'll cover it in try catch. The error will be of type any. Set error, error.errors 0 dot message. If it is not there, we'll just say please fill in the experience field correctly. Please fill. Alright. So inside our try ExperienceInfoSchema dot parse and form data dot ExperienceInfo. And if there is no error, we will set our error as empty, and we'll call the next step. Now let's call in the validate and next in our button of next. Instead of next step, we'll just have it here. So if we now go to the UI, we have done with the validation also. So if I remove this experience also, we haven't clicked anything, right? So fresher also empty, we haven't had any experience. If I click on next, you can see it says input invalid, sorry, invalid input. And if I click on yes, I'm a fresher, and if I click on next, in next step, we just need to add in that parenthesis. Alright, and next, it goes there as well. If I have an empty experience, and if I click on next, it says number of years is required. So we have a validation working also. So I'm just gonna go to the next thing. So I'm just gonna say yes, I'm a fresher, and next, let's build our education background now. This education background will be mostly same like our experience info, since education background also have the same type of array. So I'm just gonna copy these things from here and then change it over there. So from this till the end of return, before return, yeah, till here, I'm just gonna copy this, go to education background, and I'm just gonna write it here, which will give a lot of error. We'll just change it. So instead of set experience info, we need to change it to set education background, and we need to import the use state. And instead of handle experience change, we will add like handle education change. But these things are going to be same. I'm just gonna rename this. That's it. So our updated experience will be updated educations. So instead of set experience info, set education background. And here instead of experience info, education background dot educations. Alright, so we don't need to have this. Here also instead of experience we'll have educations. Alright, so this function is okay. Add education, new education. So instead of number of years, we will have three other things. So if we go to store.ts, we can see that our education has course name, school name, and year of completion. I'm just going to copy this and paste it there. So updated experience will be changed to updated educations. Form data dot EducationBackground.educations and our new education. So we will set our education background, education of updated education. Same goes for our remove experience. So education. So current education will be FormData.educationBackground.educations. So which will be of type education from validation schema. Current educations with an S. So I'm just going to write S here. So instead of company name, we'll have a school name. So here also we need to change new educations. Yes, set education background and educations here. Here instead of experience info schema, education background schema, and we'll just pass in our education background. So others will be same in validation. Next, fill in all the educations field correctly. Yeah, I think we are ready with the functions here. We just need to add our UI now, which is also going to be same mostly. So let's add in our error thing here. So our title and the error. So we don't need this fresher here since we won't be having that in our education, right? So after this, I'm just gonna close the div. Yeah. So after this error, we'll add in another div. This is for our form, which we need to look through here also. So I'm just gonna copy this entire div with this. Yeah, I'm just gonna copy this button as well. Since it is going to be the same, we just need to rename things. Form data.education background dot educations dot map. We will have an education here. I'm just gonna copy this education. Yeah. So here instead of school name, if we compare it with course name, it will be good since you can take multiple courses in the single school, right? So course name. All right. Here instead of number of year, we'll write in our course name, which will be of type text. Course name. Instead of education, we will have experience. We also handle education change. All right, this field is done. So we just need to change in our placeholder course name. So after this, we have our school name. School name. School name, which will be from educations. Sorry, from education. Handle education change. School name. I think that's it for school name also. Now the last thing is year of completion. I'm just using Control D here. So here of completion, I'm just going to use capital Y here. So in placeholder, I'm just going to use 4Y to mention that they just need to enter the year. Education and handle education change. Yeah, we are done with our year of completion as well. So instead of remove experience, we will have remove education. Make sure you're changing it here as well. And add education. Education. Yeah. So here in the buttons, instead of next step, we just need to write it as validate and next. Yeah, I think we are done with our education background page. Let's go to the UI. I'm just gonna type something here. If I click on next, it says here of completion is required. So 2323 next. You can see that it goes to the next. We can add more education or we can just remove this. And if we don't have any education and if we click on next, it says at least one education is required. So we have our UI correct now. Validation is working good. So now let's go to our last page, which is review and submit, which is kind of like the easiest page. So we don't need to write in any validation here. We are just going to show our form data, and if they submit, we are just going to console log it. So let's go to that page, review and submit. Now we'll just need our form data here as well. Form data. Here let's write our h2 same as before. Review your information. Information. Yeah. It will also have the class name as text excel and font as bold. I think it's semi bold, right? Yeah. So before button, we just need to show our data. I'm just gonna use a div. Within the div, let's have an h3 tag of our personal info. The class name will be text of LG and font of semi bold. And we will just have a div here. Within this, we will show our data. So for this div, let's add a class name grid, gap of 6, MB of 6, margin top of 2, and after MD screens, the calls will be of 2, border P2, border gray of 300, and round at large. I don't know why we have so much space here. Now inside this div, let's create a P tag. So a span inside this, which has a class name of font semi bold and first name here. So after this span, we're just going to use curly braces, form data dot personal info dot first name. So I'm just gonna copy this and paste it two more times for our last name and email and one for our phone. Last name, last name, phone number and phone, email, email. So now let's see it in the UI. We can see the personal details here now. So let's do the same for our experience info also. So let's create another div. Inside that we will have the same h3 experience information or info. Yeah, now we need to check one thing, that if it is a fresher, we can just say fresher. If it is not, we need to look through our experiences and show it to them. So for that, I'm just gonna go like form data dot experience info dot fresher. If that is the case, we will have a parenthesis and add a p tag in here. Otherwise, sorry, I think we need to add a parenthesis here. Yeah, we will add a div inside for our experiences, and we will have a p tag here. Yeah, in this p tag, let's just say fresher. We don't need nothing fancy here. And inside this div, we need to look through our experiences. So form data dot experience info dot experiences dot map, which takes the experience E and our IDX, within which let's have a div which has a key of IDX. So this div will have the same class name as this div. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. So I'm just going to copy the same p tag. Here we will have like three things: the company name, the number of years they have worked, and their description about the company. Company name, and instead of formdata.personalinfo.email, we're just going to have e.company name. The same thing is going to be our number of years worked. Number of years worked, e dot number of years worked. The same goes for the description. So let's see it in the UI. Yeah, since we have only fresh here, it says only fresh here. I'm just going to add in some data here in our experiences. I think we need to change the heading here. It should be like a education background, right? I haven't changed the heading. I will change it now. And here I'm just going to add some data, add more experiences, sex, some company name, description. I will add one more, 9. Alright, if I go to next and next, we can see our experience information here now. Alright, so let's change this like this heading here in our education background. Education background. Yeah, it has changed now. Now let's write our education background here too. So in ReviewSubmit. So after this div, let's create another div for our education background, which will have the same h3. And we will also copy this div here. Education background. So I'm just going to copy this map and paste it after the h3. Yeah. So instead of experiences, let's go with education background and educations. So for our education, we will have our course name, e.course name, and school name. School name, year of completion, year of completion. Now we can see our education background as well. I think we have finished everything here. Okay, if I click on submit, it goes to the first page and removes all the data. And if I click F12 and go to console, we can see the submitted data here. So we have our education background and our experience info, which fresher has false and 2 experiences, and our personal info as well. So now let's try building this out. So I'm just going to open our console, Control C. So npm run build. So before we run the command, I have one more thing to say that since we are using this any in our error, right, in our try catch. So if we go inside our education background, we can see in our validate function we use try catch and we are using any here, right? In I think 2 more files also like our experience info and personal info. So for this we will get an error while we are building this. So in order to not to get an error for this, we need to change our rule. So in your .es lint.rc.json, after our extends, we just write a comma and we can just write rules here. Rules, which is going to be at TypeScript -eslint /no -explicit -any. So by default it will be turned on, so we are just going to off. Yeah, now we won't get that build error. Let's run it now. You can see that we have another here, describe is never been used. So if you go to our experience info, So I don't know why this is imported. Anyway, now let's try and run this thing. Right now our build has been completed without any errors. Let's run it npm start. I'm just gonna refresh this. So let's type in some data here. Alice Smith 1212 I'm just gonna paste the email address. So we have already tried with our experiences. So now let's keep it as a fresher. I'm just gonna click on next. So for our education, I'm just gonna paste in something and add more education. Let's click on next. And we can see our data now. It says fresher along here, which is supposed to be working like that. Alright, if I click on submit and go to our console, you can see the submitted data. You see our education and experience info with experiences as an empty array. Alright, everything is working fine and good. So if you like this content, give this video a like and subscribe. And if you want to build a contact form where when a user submits, it will just go into your inbox, check out this video.